We're now going to quickly say something about the effect of adhering to intervention, acknowledging again that most of the time, users of ROB2 will assess the effect of assignment to intervention, which we've already covered. So, we've already said this bit. Two commonly used approaches to analysis may be seriously biased. Naive per protocol analyses restricted to individuals in each group who started and adhered to the interventions, or as treated analyses in which I analyze participants according to the intervention that they received, even if their randomized allocation was to a different group. So, as I've already showed you in the context of the screening trial, naive per protocol analyses can be very seriously biased, and that's why we have the question about the analysis in ROB2 deviations from intended intervention. However, there are methods that can sometimes be used to justify an estimate of the effect of adhering to intervention. One of those is using randomization as an instrumental variable. This is not the time in the remaining very few minutes for a seminar on instrumental variable analysis, but just briefly to say that in an instrumental variable analysis, we exploit the fact that there is no confounding of the association of randomized allocation with treatment received or of randomized allocation with the outcome. So we shouldn't look at the direct effect of treatment received on the outcome. That's the per protocol effect. That may be seriously biased, but we can exploit the associations that are not confounded, randomized allocation and treatment received, randomized allocation and the outcome, to estimate, to conduct an instrumental variable analysis. Okay, I'm moving quickly here because an instrumental variable analysis exploits these associations to estimate the per protocol effect. And a nice paper talking about per protocol analyses of pragmatic trials, appropriate ways to estimate per protocol effects, was published by Miguel Hernan and James Robbins in the New England Journal of Medicine in, I think, 2018. And that's what we did in the study, in the trial, in the screening trial I showed you earlier on. We wanted to estimate the effects of screening on prostate cancer mortality. We saw higher prostate cancer mortality in people who didn't attend screening. That's simply likely to be because of associated health behaviors. So we did not report the naive per protocol analysis comparing attenders with control, which we think is seriously biased. But we did report an intention to, we reported both an intention to treat analysis and an instrumental variable analysis and adherence adjusted rate ratio. And that did not provide strong evidence that the intervention reduced prostate cancer mortality. Very quickly, when we're interested in assessing the bias due to the effects of adhering to intervention, then we have different sets of signaling questions for the effects of adhering to intervention. We specify that in advance, and if we're assessing the effects of adhering to intervention, we say whether we're interested in bias in adjusting for the occurrence of non-protocol interventions or failures in implementing the intervention or non-adherence by trial participants, as in the case of the screening example. And that's all specified in the in software implementations. Julian, I think I'm supposed to hand over to you at this point.
Yeah, well, that's just a screenshot from the Excel tool for doing this. I think we'll just end on a quick run through the signaling questions that we've developed for the effect of adhering to intervention, which start with exactly the same two questions about whether participants or trial personnel were aware of interventions assigned to participants in the trial. And then we move on to those three aspects, those three types of deviations that we opened the whole webinar with, around non-protocol interventions being balanced, around failures to implement the intervention that could have affected the outcome, and around non-adherence by trial participants in ways that could have affected the outcomes. Now, importantly, here we're asking 2.4 and 2.5, even if the trial was fully blinded, because if people don't adhere I mean, we can have non-adherence even if people don't know what tablets they're given, if they're active or placebo. But if there's a high rate of non-adherence to people taking them, then we might underestimate the effect of adhering to the tablets as intended. So we've got those 3 questions that address those 3 topics. If they've been pre-specified as being of interest in the way we want to define the effect of adhering to intervention in this particular for this particular study. And then the last question addresses whether there was an appropriate analysis that did much better than that naive per protocol or as treated analysis to estimate the effect of adhering to intervention, which would be something like an instrumental variables analysis or something more sophisticated. So I think I won't talk through the algorithm. I think we'll just end there. Don't think there's time for any more questions. I think perhaps I should hand over to Ella to close it down.